Um, all right. So, welcome to the November meeting of the Equity Advisory Group for the Interstate Bridge Project. My name is Roberta Suzette Hunt, and I am your facilitator for today for the group. So, may we have slides? Thank you. So, next slide. Closed captions are in English and Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window, ibr.news/captions. Next slide. So for reminders, we encourage EAG members to turn on your video. Please say your name when you begin to speak. And if you experience technical difficulties, please contact program staff at 360-329-6744. Next slide. Public input. There'll be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting today. To submit input after the meeting, email comments to info@interstatebridge.org with EAG Public Comment in the subject line. Call 888-503-6735 and state EAG Public Comment in your message. Next slide. For our agenda today, we'll have an icebreaker, the program administrator update. We'll talk about the draft SEIS, the public comment overview, the equity KPIs, and public comment and closeout. So the icebreaker today is name and pronouns and affiliation. What's a quality you appreciate most in others? So who will start for us? John Gardner.
Good evening, IBR family. John Gardner, a he, him. I'm with TriMet. And I would say the quality I appreciate most in others is flexibility.
That's a great one. All right, next up. How about you, Vicki?
Hello. Vicki Nakashima, and I use she, her pronouns.
Oh, Vicki, you got muted.
Sorry, I thought it was unmuted. My name's Vicki Nakashima, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a community member living in Vancouver, Southwest Washington. And a quality I really appreciate is even on Zoom, people who smile. It puts you at ease immediately. It does to me, and I appreciate that.
Great. Could we take the slide down for now so that we can see each other? Thank you. Thank you. All right. Who's up next? So let's see. How about Andre?
Hello, everyone. Andre Beeler, he, him, pronouns. I'm with Metro. I'm sitting in today for Sabrina Owens-Wilson. And the quality I like the most is honesty.
Great. Thank you. How about Jennifer?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Campos, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with the Southwest Washington Regional Transportation Council. and mine just got stolen. I was going to say honesty. So whether it be good or bad, I just really like people to be straightforward and honest with me.
How about Alicia?
Good evening, everyone. Alicia Sojourner. Them, they pronouns. I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion for the City of Vancouver. My apologies having my camera off. I either can hear you or have the camera on, so I prefer to hear you all. Something with my Wi-Fi at home, so my apologies. I have a long list, but what came to mind right away was curiosity. I love, in this work especially, I love it when people are truly curious. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you. All right, so I think everyone else is IBR staff. So why don't we quickly, how about Mr. Johnson?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
All right, Greg Johnson, I'm the IBR Program Administrator, he, him. And one of the qualities I like most in people is empathy.
Thank you. How about you, Aiden?
Good evening, everyone. Aiden Gronauer, they, them, or he, him pronouns. Everybody's named such good ones I don't want to repeat. So what everybody else has said, as well as open-mindedness.
Jim?
Jim Ruddle, the program manager for the consulting team on the IBR. Our pronouns are he, him. And I would say equanimity, grace under pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Kimberly?
Good evening, everybody. I am Kimberly Webb. I am the communications lead on the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. My pronouns are she, her, and the trait I enjoy or appreciate with others is empathy and patience.
Salome?
Good evening, everyone. Salome or Salome. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the community engagement sub-lead here at IBR. And the trait that I most appreciate in a person is conviction.
Great. How about you, Jono?
Good morning, or good morning, good afternoon. It's morning somewhere. Good afternoon, everyone. John O'Bell, he, him, Principal Equity Officer for IBR. And I would say candor. Really appreciate folks just giving it to me straight.
So Albert, the prompt for today, welcome, Albert. The prompt is your name, pronouns, and affiliation. And what is a character trait that you appreciate in others?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry I'm late. Albert Lee, community member, he, him pronouns, and a character trait that I appreciate I'm sorry, I missed a prompt.
A character trait that you appreciate in others.
Sure. Integrity.
Thank you. Yamaya?
Good evening, everyone. Yamaya Holbreeze, pronouns she, her, ella. I'm IBR equity team, and a quality will be active listening. I feel like when people listen actively, they are able to be more compassionate towards one another. Thank you.
Yeah. How about you, Xander?
Hello, everybody. My name is Xander Arnold. I use he, him pronouns, and I am here to support tech for meetings. A quality that I always appreciate in somebody is kindness.
So Barbie, what we're doing, your name, your pronouns, your affiliation, and a character trait that you really appreciate in others.
I'm Barbie Alexander. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Shared Prosperity Program Analyst at the Port of Portland. And a character trait that I really appreciate in others is clarity. I think clarity is kindness when delivered with compassion.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Emily, have you gone? You did go, no? Emily, okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Thomas Peralta, and I'm with the IBR Equity team. I use she, her pronouns, and character trait I most appreciate. I think, of course, what everyone else has said, and also humility. I think being able to admit when maybe you didn't do something right or you don't know something. I think that's a first step a lot of times in coming together in differences. It's like being okay with admitting that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I think that is all of us. So let's bring the slides back. Thank you, everyone. And we'll go to the next slide. And we're ready for our program update with our program administrator, Greg Johnson.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. So the program is continuing to be busy, but also meeting milestones. We are gearing up for sometime in next spring. We will release the draft supplemental environmental impact statement. So we are ramping up the number of presentations that we are doing in the area and around each state. So we did a presentation for the Vancouver Transportation and Mobility Commission, also the Association of General Contractors in Oregon. We also did a presentation for COMTO, the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. So this is, once again, we are trying to meet as many people where they are at, get them informed. So the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association, Frank Green, one of our deputies, did a fantastic job bringing those folks up to speed. We are meeting with neighborhood associations on both sides of the river on a regular basis. If they request, we will come and make a presentation for them. So here are a few of the neighborhood groups that we have presented to. So it is tremendously important as we are getting to finalize that footprint during this draft supplemental process, that the neighborhoods understand the impacts that this will have. We also talked to the City of Portland's Historic Landmark and Design Committee. And once again, one of the things that we are hearing from not only the EAG, but CAG, and as well as the Community Benefits Advisory Group, is that they do want the centerpiece of this program, the river crossing, to be a landmark, something that folks can come and gather to and be a centerpiece in the neighborhood. So having a conversation with them was excellent. So let's go to the next slide. So earlier this month, we met with the Bi-State Legislative Committee. That's the committee of legislators, 8 on each side of the river, to get them up to speed, because we had not met with them since July. So we got them up to speed on all the things we are doing. You can watch the video on our website if you want to see some of the interaction. But some of the things they were most interested in, they are interested in community benefits. They're also looking at keeping us on schedule and making sure that we meet that in-water work period that I think I described to you guys last month. That's important for fall of 2026. If we miss it, we miss an entire year of construction, which means out in the future, out in 2034, that's approximately $300 million in inflation and escalation costs. So we are having a meeting with that bi-state legislative committee next week. And then we're going to meet one more time before session begins. We'll be meeting in mid to late December. We also had an excellent meet and greet with, we invited minority contractors, minority businesses to come to the OWAMI offices and meet with prime contractors and also to meet with the team and learn more about the project. One of the things is we tell folks is you can never have a place at the table if you don't know where the table is at and when it's being set. So we're trying to get the word out to small businesses, minority-owned contractors. This is what's coming, and get them ready to participate fully in this program. We're also still doing a number of tours. We had a tour a couple weeks ago with the Oregon Transportation Commission, where we took them both on the bridge and to experience the bridge itself, and then on the program area, so they could understand the things that when we come down to Salem to talk to them, they understand what this program is like and the physical challenges that are presented in this corridor. So it's one of the most important things we do is give tours to entities that are interested, and we will continue to do that throughout the life of the project, even through construction phases. We will have people who will be taking tours. But other than that, we also submitted last Friday our Bridge Improvement Program grant. This is the biggest grant, federal grant, that we will be going after. This we applied for $1.5 billion. So in our mega grant, which we applied for in beginning of October, we applied for $600 million and the mega grant category. So once again, we're hoping to find these our success or lack thereof. For the mega grant, we think it'll be out in January, and for the Bridge Improvement Program grant, we think that will happen sometime early to mid-spring. So we appreciate any of you who submitted letters of support. Once again, it's important that Washington, D.C. understand that this area is united and committed to getting this thing done. So with that, I'll take any questions that you may have before we go on to the next presentation.
Well, it looks like you're pretty good.
Excellent. Well, I'll be here throughout the meeting, so if something comes to mind, please feel free to ask.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
everyone.
All right. So Angela Findley is our environmental lead who will talk with us about the draft SEIS. And you'll explain to us what SEIS is.
Yes. Although I think it'd be a fun contest to have to see what we could come up with. Yes, so I will be talking about the supplemental environmental impact statements this evening. I'm happy to be back. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity to participate in the EAG meeting, so thank you. What I'm going to get into today is some of our environmental compliance efforts, especially with respect to the supplemental environmental impact statement that Greg was just mentioning. We are in the process of preparing this document, which will then, a draft of it will be published for public review and comment. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is included in this document, and helping you understand the different pieces of it and why we're doing it, to inform ultimately the decision that is made on the preferred solution for the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. So I will dive in. In the supplemental EIS, environmental impact statement, we are studying two alternatives. One is the modified locally preferred alternative, and the other is basically a comparison to the baseline. What if no improvements were made in this corridor? And we call that the no build alternative. What if nothing is built? So that we can understand and we can compare between the two. The modified locally preferred alternative is at this point in conceptual design. So it's not the final design. It won't have all the details, but it identifies key elements that we can evaluate the impacts and benefits of. The draft supplemental EIS presents the different design components that comprise the modified LPA. And really what that document's purpose is to disclose what the likely impacts and benefits are. And if there are adverse impacts, what are the types of mitigation that the program is considering to offset those impacts? The results of all this analysis, like I said, is published in a document called a draft supplemental EIS. These findings will be available for public review and comment. We are not making changes, or excuse me, we are not making decisions or narrowing down design options until after we have the opportunity to hear from the community, receive their feedback. With that feedback in hand, at that point, we can make adjustments, refine the design in response to public comments, other environmental compliance activities that are ongoing, to advance us into the decision-making process, which will support the next environmental document, which is the final supplemental EIS and what we call a record of decision. It is not until that final step, the record of decision, of when a decision is actually made. Next slide, please. So going a little bit deeper into what of the two alternatives, as I mentioned, we have the modified locally preferred alternative, and then we have the no build. The modified LPA includes all of the components of the corridor wide improvements, the highway improvements, the transit improvements, active transportation improvements for pedestrians, bicyclists, and I feel like I'm missing something, and the bridges themselves, just all those different elements for the full corridor. In some places along the corridor, we have a couple of options that we're considering. I've noted some of those over on the right-hand side of the screen. We have several different bridge configurations, whether we're looking at including one or two auxiliary lanes in each direction of the highway, alignment, some alignment options as I-5 moves through downtown Vancouver, some interchange ramps at C Street in Vancouver, as well as some park and rides at transit stations. These options really are kind of what we call bookends. We're kind of analyzing both of the options. The ultimate decision, maybe some combination of them or somewhere in the middle. And that decision, again, won't be made until later in the program. Right now, we're just putting it out there of what it is we're looking at, what are the associated impacts and benefits to inform folks so that they can provide comments that will feed into decision-making process. The no-build alternative, as I mentioned, is a situation where there are no improvements done along the corridor as a result of this program. If there are other improvements proposed, let's say by the City of Vancouver or the Port of Portland, that are independent of this program, those projects would proceed, but the no build is where none of the proposed interstate bridge replacement components would be implemented. We are looking at the future conditions of both of these alternatives, so which is a little difficult sometimes. Our future horizon is 2045, so that's over 20 years from now, obviously. But like our traffic analysis will be not when when the program is open for people to start driving on the new bridge and sometime in the 2030s, but it's really looking further out to make sure that we are building the right level of infrastructure to support that future growth in terms of population and employment. And that's what our analysis is based on. Next slide, please. There's a lot of words on this page, but this is a version of the table of contents of the draft supplemental EIS. It's a technical document that is supported with a shorter summary of what's in the document. So if you don't want to read a few hundred pages, you can always read the summary for kind of the Cliff Note version. And it will summarize all these other elements. We have what we call the front matter. That's where we have kind of table of contents and an abstract, signature pages, and so forth. The meat of the document is in chapters 1 through 5. Chapter 1 is explaining what the purpose of the program is and the needs for the program. We worked with the EAG quite some time ago talking about what are the fundamental transportation needs that need to be addressed in this corridor. That's what is stated in the purpose and need. That's really our problem statement, why we are here. Chapter 2 goes into the details of describing the two alternatives. It includes maps to show the improvements as well as a very detailed description to walk through what the interchange types would be at the different locations along I-5, what the bridge types configurations are, and so forth. So we have chapter 1, which is purpose and need, our problem statement. Chapter 2 is all our alternatives, which are possible solutions to addressing those problem statements. And then chapter 3 is a very usually long chapter. As you can see, there's 22 different subsections to it, where we start going one by one through each of the resources, transportation, navigation, a lot of community elements, land use, neighborhoods, parks and recreation, noise, visual, and so on, and as well as our natural environment in terms of water quality, wetlands, ecosystems. We are focusing on climate, so we have a full range of disciplines that we look through where we evaluate for each alternative, what are the impacts on the ecosystems? What are the impacts on neighborhoods, and so on. Chapter 4 is a quick, well, probably not quick, it's not the right word, but is provide some detail on the financial analysis. What is the cost of the program? What are revenue sources to fund the program? What are some of those opportunities that we have? And so that is the purpose of Chapter 4. Chapter 5 is kind of a special compliance activity that we need to do for a certain federal regulation called the U.S. Department of Transportation Act, where we look at Section 4F resources, which is a small set of parks, recreation facilities, historic properties. If we had refuges, national refuges in the project area, we would also be looking at those in that chapter. So that's that is just part of our environmental compliance program. I won't go through the appendices, but the appendices provide a lot of backup and detail to support the environmental analysis that's presented in the supplemental EIS. Next slide, please. So this is a really bird's eye view of the modified locally preferred alternative. From the lower left, you can see the improvements start around North Victory Boulevard and I-5 and continue north for about 5 miles up to the SR 500 I-5 39th Street interchange. And each of these call out boxes describe areas where there are improvements. Again, this is very high level. I think the program will be coming back in a month or 2 or 3 and diving into more detail on these improvements. But I just wanted to put this up there so that you could see that there are considerations in each of the 7 interchanges in the corridor. There are transit considerations, extension of the yellow line light rail, extension of bus on shoulder that's occurring in the Vancouver area, active transportation with shared use paths and other connections, and then certainly replacement bridges over the main stem of the Columbia River, as well as North Portland Harbor. And then in some of those call out boxes, you will see in yellow print, I know it's a little hard, but you can see we have identified where there are some design options where we have more than one choice for what may happen there. So for example, the Columbia River bridges, we are looking at 3 different bridge configurations. And each of those will be evaluated in the environmental impact statement to compare and contrast them so that folks can understand what the different options are and provide comment if that is something that you're interested in commenting on. Again, there is a whole presentation that will dive deeper into exactly what is going on at each of these interchanges, what is being proposed specifically for all the transit components. Today, we're focusing on the environmental document, and in the future, the program will return with a deeper dive on these design elements. Next slide, please. So now that hopefully you have an overall understanding of basically the structure of the environmental impact statement with the problem statement and purpose need, a couple alternatives that are being evaluated, and across the wide range of community and environmental resources that we're looking at, what exactly does that impact analysis look at? That's what this slide is addressing. And so we look at, we categorize the types of effects or impacts and benefits into several categories, several buckets, if you will. We have what are the long-term direct effects. Those are kind of the permanent impacts that would occur after the project is constructed. We have short-term effects that occur during construction. Some of those are temporary and only occur during the construction activities. We have a couple other that are required under the National Environmental Policy Act, which is called, we have indirect effects. Those are things that happen during construction or from the permanent infrastructure improvements that maybe occur farther in distance from the I-5 corridor, or maybe don't manifest at that time, but it can occur further in time. Cumulative effects is another type of analysis that we do, where we look more broadly than just what happens as a result of the program, of the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. We look at those impacts of the program in combination with other activities, whether it's development within the city or ports, other transportation, transit, utility, public works type projects, is just trying to understand, how does this project in combination with other developments, other projects in the past, currently, or those anticipated in the future, so that we're looking at what is trying to assess whether we have maybe not significant impacts directly from the program, but when we combine it into the larger perspective of other improvements occurring, we want to look at those cumulative impacts and make sure that we're accounting for those as a part of our program. And for all these different types of effects that we evaluate and describe in the document, when we find that there are adverse effects to particular resource areas, we are providing mitigation measures to try and offset those impacts. Some of those mitigation measures are required regardless, just due to permits and other approvals that we need to get to move the program forward, or may just be standard best management practices that our transit agencies and our state departments of transportation departments implement as a routine way of construction. And so we identify those, plus any specific project mitigation that we will implement for those unique elements that may be affected by the program. Next slide, please. Thank you. So you may ask, I know this is a lot of information that I'm kind of presenting here. What is the Equity Advisory Group's role with the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement? We tried to identify some of those actions and how you can help the program. One is just spreading the word. When we're close to releasing the draft supplemental EIS that is going to be out there for public review, we want to encourage folks to take a look at it, attend or participate in some of our community activities where we can explain the proposal and the impacts, the different design options, so that people are aware of what's being proposed, and if they want to comment, they know how to do that. And Kimberly's going to dive a little bit deeper into that, Kimberly, and after I run through this section of the agenda. We are planning to have a 60-day comment period, so that's roughly 2 months of the document, the supplemental or the draft supplemental EIS being available for folks to take a look at, understand, and provide comment. There will be in-person events, online opportunities to learn about the program, ask questions, and multiple ways of being able to submit comments. Your comments and other constituents that you may represent or other organizations that you engage in, it's really valuable information that we receive from our public comment period. This is a large portion of information that the program receives, and it really helps us with making key decisions about the program and what is advanced forward into later stages of design and construction. And of course, not only spreading the word to your organizations, we also truly value any of your own public input that you want to submit on the draft supplemental EIS. The timeline. This is always kind of a little bit of what I call a crystal ball exercise. We are working with a lot of external agencies to help us produce the supplemental EIS. So this is our best timeline at the moment. We are looking at releasing the draft supplemental EIS in early 2024. As I mentioned, after that release, there will be a roughly 2-month comment period. We, as a program, will be doing a lot of work to present and help people understand what's going to be in the document. What are the alternatives? What are the design options? We've started that already, but we will be ramping that up to get information out there so that when the draft supplemental EIS is published, there's a good understanding of what's being evaluated. And then folks can really focus on learning, well, what are the differences? What are the impacts? You know, what's happening to Fort Vancouver National Historic Site? What's happening, you know, on Hayden Island and so forth. And then, so after the public comment occurs in the mid 2024, from after that is concluded, the program will be looking at comments, understanding them, responding to substantive comments during the rest of 2024, and looking to publish the final, it should actually be the final supplemental EIS and record of decision in late 2024 or into early 2025. And that record of decision, again, is the decision document. That is when the actual decision is made on which which components of the modified LPA are moving forward for further design and construction. And so, speaking of those decisions that will need to be made, we will be looking at recommending, identifying which of the design options based on public comment and other information that comes into the program. This is back to some of those design options. As I mentioned, there are 3 bridge configurations that we're looking at. The number of auxiliary lanes, those are those extra lanes from ramp from one interchange to another to provide for extended weaving and merging. C Street in Vancouver, I-5 alignment in Vancouver, and then possible park and ride facilities at 2 of the new light rail transit stations. We will be looking at identifying which of the options are preferred in the final supplemental EIS. And so those we will be looking at the public comment to inform selecting and narrowing those options down to support identifying a preferred alternative for the final supplemental EIS. And I think at this point, we wanted to provide a little bit of time to get any feedback that the EAG may have on your thoughts on how to help prepare the community to be ready to review the draft supplemental EIS when it's published. And and any thoughts you may have on what you think the public or organizations that you work with will is most important that they want to understand in that environmental document. Roberta, I think I pass it back to you to facilitate the discussion.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Would it be helpful to take the slide down? Great. Great. So, and would you restate the question, Angela?
Yes.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell. So we're really looking for any help. As I mentioned, we want to do some pre-work in helping people know what is going to be in the document. And so we're looking for input on how best to share that information with folks, as well as understand from the EAG perspective what they think will be most important to share with the public. Or I can also, if there's any questions, I know I put a lot of information out there. If folks have any questions on that, can also try and answer those.
So Angela, I have a question. So what if I absolutely hate the project and I write down, I hate the project? Is that helpful?
It's not super helpful. Good question, Greg. If there are elements of the program that you think are not good solutions, the more specific that people can be. Maybe it's I don't like, the proposal for the SR14 interchange on I-5 in downtown Vancouver, or I'm not wild about the new transit station, the configuration of it on Hayden Island. The more specific that comments can be of understanding what you have a concern about or what you really like that you think is a great solution. We love to hear positive too. The more specific that folks can be with their comments, the easier it is for the program team to really look into that specific comment and see if there's something different, or if the commenter wants to propose, have you thought about X? Have you thought about maybe reconfiguring the station so that it faces east instead of west, or whatever, those types of specific comments and proposed solutions are really helpful, something that the program team can sink their teeth into and explore, rather than a general statement about, I don't like what you guys are doing. There's not a lot we can do with that comment unless we have something specific.
Those are the comments that we save for Facebook and social media.
We will most likely say thank you for your comment, because we don't know what it is. Yeah, what it is you don't like. Yeah.
Vicky. Oh, we can't hear you, Vicky. Can't hear you.
I'm having trouble with mute today for some reason. I have a few comments if you'd consider. I don't come with much expertise in this area, but just in terms of how it's presented, I would recommend that either we try as hard as we can not to use acronyms. And if you use an acronym, put it in parentheses after the reference, or put a code sheet in about what every acronym means. I think that people in government are the most used to using acronyms. And I think it's a way of people who are foreign to the programs have a hard time understanding. The other is that, you know, I have lived here since I was a little kid, and I have no idea where Victory Boulevard is. And when you said Victory Boulevard, I thought, oh, I still don't know, but I know that every exit has a milepost number. And I'm just wondering how much trouble it would be, or if it would be helpful at all to put the milepost number or some kind of key that would, because at least if you kind of know it's 5 miles from the state line instead of 1 mile, that could be helpful. It may not be, but I'd ask that maybe your team consider that. The third comment that I have is it hit me as perhaps not practical to say no bridge is an option. I've been describing that the interstate bridge is not viable. You know, it's not built on, it's not built in a way that's sustainable if there's a big earthquake and I know that, you know, there have been decisions that have been communicated with the public that certain school buildings will not be usable, that they will need to be replaced, that's not a question of an option. So I would want the impression to be that, you know, no bridge won't be a viable option.
Yes, all very great points. Thank you, Vicki. We know that on your first point about acronyms, that it's jargon, and unless you work in a field that uses that particular acronym, it's kind of hard to understand what's being talked about. So we try to use them only on very common terms, phrases that we have in the environmental document. But I appreciate your input, and it is something that we can continue to look into to use the spelled out version and to have those keys to help folks navigate that information. Your second
Angela,
point. Oh,
Angela,
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't the document have that full list of acronyms? Any acronym that's used in the document, there's a listing of it and spelling out exactly what it means.
There is indeed, Greg, there is. We know that that's not always going to be right there on your screen when you're looking at the document online. In tables, we tend to use a lot of acronyms for space saving, and we oftentimes provide a mini key of acronyms in the table so that people don't have to flip back and forth. But it is something we know can be quite challenging, because we reach out to people of many different sectors, and like, I don't know the acronyms of the welding field, for example. I'd be clueless. Let's see. The second point that you mentioned, Victory Boulevard, it's funny. I've lived in the Portland, Vancouver area most of my life, and I never called that interchange Victory Boulevard. I always refer to it as the Delta Park interchange. But I appreciate your request about adding milepost numbers. That's something we can look into. We do have a fair amount of graphics in the supplemental EIS document to provide that visual reference for the reader. And then your last point, which I think I just lost track of, if somebody could help me
The no bridge option.
Yes. So thank you for raising that question because it's a point that I didn't cover very well. The no build alternative is a requirement under the National Environmental Policy Act for us to evaluate. It does not meet the purpose and need for the program. It does not address congestion. It does not address the seismic resiliency deficient or problems associated with the interstate bridge. But it is a basis of comparison that we need to provide, that we're required to consider in a NEPA, in an environmental impact statement.
Thank you.
Albert.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hunt. And hello, Angela. I guess your question is, how to spread the word to communities about the draft. And for me, I just think about all of us being really good at being Monday morning quarterbacks. And after a project is completed or a game is done, we go back and we can look at what should have, could have, and ought to have been done. And when we're talking about something as complex as this, I have to agree with Vicky in that we have to make things clear and in plain language for folks so that they can understand it. Because I think a lot of the public comment that you're going to receive are from vested interest folks that have a very specific iron to put in, but then for your regular community members, I don't know if in the impact statement do you chunk it out into areas and places where you figure there might be some contention or there might be some differing opinions, and maybe have a way to highlight the places where there might be where opinions may vary? And I guess the last part is, I think that all of our community members are going to be coming from different levels of understanding and also the ability to take a look and digest complex information. So I was wondering if there are ways to, again, identify where you think things might have opposing views and kind of highlight those and provide different times for I guess you can't provide different times, you got 60-day comment period for it, but just to be able to present it in a way that kind of piecemeal it out so that folks can see issues that might be of concern to them.
Yeah, we will be working very hard to provide information that's in the environmental impact statement document, to boil it down to provide as clear of information as we can. As you know, it's a big program. It has many components to it. It's complex. It's not always easy to relay complexity in a simple manner, but we will try our best, as well as provide opportunities for anybody who has questions to be able to reach out to the program team. So if you don't understand, we can be there to explain and present it to you. We won't necessarily be saying, group X supports this and group Y supports something different, but we do have a lot of comparative tables in the document to show that the modified LPA with this design option and modified LPA with that design options, they're the same in some areas, and to tease out where they're different. So you can see from as factual standpoint, as technical standpoint as we can to present you with those similarities and differences. And we'll leave it to the individual to bring their lens of opinion on what they think is the better solution. We are just trying to disclose the technical analysis for people to comment on.
So Angela, I have a follow-up question to Albert's question. So the document that we produce will be an electronic document. So let's say I am interested in anywhere in the document the term tunnel appears. Will there be help or I'm forgetting the term, that I could punch in tunnel and it'll tell me every page or citation where tunnel is cited in that document?
That's a good one, Greg. You stumped me. I don't know, but with electronic documents, it will be a searchable document. It is a big document, so we will chunk it up so that so that you don't have to download these or open these huge files. That's something I'll have to follow back up with to understand that element. I will say that many environmental impact statements also have an index for key terms. It may or may not include the particular term a person may want to search for, but it does have an index for common terms about the program. I think as we get closer to publishing the draft supplemental EIS, we'll be able to explain how you can search and how you can navigate the document online. It'll be posted up on our website that people can view. They can download the sections that they want to download onto their personal device if necessary. But I have to save that answer on searchability for a little bit later. We'll check into that. All right. Well, I don't want to eat into, there's another really good topic that follows me. So Dr. Hunt, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. And so our next up, we have Kimberly Webb and Salome Chimuka. Chimuku. And so we are talking about public comment. Yeah, public comment for the draft SCIS. Yes. All right. So I'm going to pass it to you all.
Thank you, Dr. Hunt. Hello, everyone. Salome here. Myself and Kimberly will be walking you all through what we're preparing for this public comment period. And so if you can go to the next slide. So as Angela mentioned earlier, there's going to be a public comment period that follows the release of the draft SCIS. This will include 60 days for folks to submit comment. And we're expecting to get a lot of comments. Those 60 days are in compliance because normally on a program, you'll get about 30 to 45 days to give public comment during a public comment period, but we are giving 60 days to allow for additional time to understand the information being given and additional time to give public comment. Obviously, this is not the only time that we take comments from members of the public, but this is just in compliance with this prescriptive federal process that Angela outlined. Over the next coming months, IBR will be providing more information about what is being studied to help people prepare for the public comment period. And when you submit a public comment, the program will record that comment and provide a response to the comment in the final supplemental environmental impact statement in late 2024, early 2025. And so again, this public comment period is in compliance and is a part of a more prescriptive process. And these comments are tied to the document, and we do respond to each of the different comments. Next slide, please. So the public comment period, there's going to be many different ways that people will be able to participate. We, again, are hoping to release this sometime in early 2024 in the spring. And there's going to be many different ways to submit public comment. I am going to look to Kimberly Webb, who is our communications lead on the program, to just give some examples of the different ways that people can give public comment.
Thank you, Salome. The next slide, please. Actually, I'm sorry, we'll go back. Thank you, apologies. So to submit a public comment, there are several ways that you can do this. We will have a web-based form available online. We will also have a specific email address that people can send their comments written via email. We realize that electronic means don't always work for everybody, so people can send us a comment through the US mail to our office. You can also call the Interstate Bridge Replacement Office and leave a voicemail. You can also comment at public hearings. We also realize that people may need to use ASL to comment, and so they could also submit us a video with using ASL with their public comment. So we will ensure that our community is informed on how they can provide their comment well in advance of the release of the supplemental environmental impact statement. You will see in our recent newsletter, we've already started sharing that information. And it is also important to note that comments do not have to be in English, and that we will accommodate any ADA or other needs. Next slide, thank you. So this is how we are informing the public leading up to the release of the document, as well as educating folks well in advance of the release, and in addition to right at the release. So we are using tactics such as advertising. We are ensuring that we are building the advertising plan currently, and we are making sure we are including spaces that are seen by equity priority communities. So we are planning to place advertisements in culturally specific media outlets. And we will also leverage social media in addition to traditional advertising. We are currently working on storyboarding a video series that describes what is in the supplemental environmental impact statement and the metrics and data points that are being studied. Of course, we cannot release the actual results of those metrics until the document is released, but we believe it's very important to ensure people are prepared and have an idea of what is going to be in this very dense document, so they are equipped to comment during that time. We also have plans for written engagement, such as postcards, display boards, any supplies we need for in-person meetings, and fact sheets, and any conversations that we have. And these written materials can also be used. We can drop them off the community organizations so they can share with their members as well. And we're also working to ensure that these materials are translated in advance. We're also hosting in-person meetings. Salome and her community engagement team, as well as other teams, have been diligently working with various community groups and organizations to hold in-person briefings. We will do that ahead of the release of the SEIS to, again, ensure folks are equipped to participate during the public comment period, as well as during the release of the SEIS. And then we're leveraging our partnerships with the media, the traditional media. They are crucial as a partner to help us get our information out to a wider range of audiences, and also do it in a very in an impartial, or I should say, in a way that we expect that they're doing it in a balanced view of what we're trying to accomplish. So here's what we're going to talk about. Again, I shared a little bit about this as we're leading up to this draft SEIS. We will describe what are the components of the SEIS. So what are we measuring? What to expect during the public comment period, such as how to submit their comments, what will happen to their comment afterwards, and where they can join us for any public hearings or in-person meetings. So what our intended outcomes for this is to get feedback from our community ahead of the public comment period to help inform our future content and approach to engagement. So we will use this public feedback not only to inform updates and responses to the draft SEIS, but how the program will create content in the future, as well as our public engagement approach. And we also want to understand the information needs. So that means we're constantly improving how we're reaching people. And this is a critical juncture for us to better understand people's needs and how to meet them where they're at. In our communications team, we regularly collaborate with our community engagement and equity teams to ensure our content and materials connect with equity priority communities, and in particular, to ensure we provide all the tools and information they need to give us feedback, and that the program may apply the benefits of these investments to all in the community. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Salome.
Thank you. And so what you see here on the slide is a description of all of the different engagement that we're planning to do to get people ready. As you all saw, there is quite a bit of content within the draft supplemental environmental impact statement. And because of that, we are having a lot of engagement opportunities to help the public digest such a large document, considering that not everyone in the community are experts in this process, and especially with our equity priority communities, they may have never had an opportunity to engage in something like this before. And so the formal requirements, as you can see, are pretty short. They're not that many. It is to have public hearings and to do public notification. But we are doing additional engagement opportunities, such as having office hours, doing briefings, presentations, working with our community-based organizations as they do their miniature grant, doing things like literature drop, direct mail, in-person outreach. I think you get the picture here. We're just trying to reach everybody every way that we can and make ourselves accessible. As you can see, our audience here includes some of our equity priority community members, residents in the program area, property and business owners, neighbor associations, current and future travelers over the bridge who drive, use transit, or active transportation. And this is especially important to us because we do recognize that there are people that would like to use the facilities if they were better, and would use the facilities if they're better. So we want to make sure we're not only getting those who currently use it, but those who would want to use it in the future, as well as our community-based organizations. And as Kimberly Webb put it earlier, there's many ways that people can give public comment. And so we want to make sure that our efforts to do engagement match that diversity in how people want to be engaged. As you can see on this slide here, these are the organizations that are participating with us in our community-based miniature grant program that we do here on the program here at IBR. And so here are just the ones that we are working with: Kata Casa, Odyssey World International, Education Services, Independent Living Resources, the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Southwest Washington, Partners in Careers, Sakura 39ers Youth Association, the Slavic Community Center of the Northwest, and the Seoul District Business Association. And so these are the ones that were awarded funds. They are evenly split between Oregon and Washington, as well as the funds that were provided. And these organizations are going to be helping us by doing direct outreach to their members and beyond. And so we do not pretend to know everybody in the region. So we are looking to our CBO partners, as well as to our advisory group members, to help advertise when we have these listening sessions and briefings that are meant to educate the public and dive deeper into questions that they might have to prepare them for the release of this large document. Next slide, please. So that being said, we had a couple of questions here for you for your consideration. The first question being, how can we share this content of the draft SEIS in a way that helps community provide feedback? And what are additional community engagement would you encourage the program to conduct with the outcome of encouraging public participation and feedback? One thing I will mention that I know came up in Albert's question earlier, as well as in Vicky's question, is that leading up to the release, we do know that there's a lot of chapters and sub-chapters of those chapters within the document. And so we will be having a series in the future that are just dedicated on how to navigate the document. And what kind of topics are within each of these different chapters. Because when I say climate, that could mean 1,000,001 different things to 1,000,001 different people. And so we are going to be looking at future events to do just that, a breakdown of chapter by different sections to tell people what to expect and what do we mean when we say this in the title, and what kind of information might be in there. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any hand raise or any questions for me yet, but I will also invite you all to know that we are going to be doing a public briefing here soon. This is to get the public caught up on all we've been working on since the last year before we start diving into the SEIS even deeper. But I'll hand it to Dr. Hunt to facilitate the discussion.
Thanks. John Gardner.
Yeah, sorry. I think the second question you had in terms of what else could you be doing, I didn't see this, but it might have been said, is in a previous meeting months ago, I thought we had talked about communities of faith. So it does feel like sometimes we forget that a lot of folks actually, that's where they gather. I mean, I love my community-based organizations, but sometimes the communities of faith are very large and connected. So if we can include them around where the footprint is, that might be an additional avenue to explore.
Thank you. Yes, you are correct. That was a suggestion that was given to us. And I can say that the way in which we're going to approach that work will be through our literature drops. And this is where members of the community engagement team go into the area on foot and hand out flyers and information to try to reach people who aren't easy to reach via electronically, or people that are passing through the area, or our faith-based communities, essentially. And so we will be putting places where people gather, I think is that what we call them. So on our list, so parks, faith-based community organizations and such, where our grocery stores, where we know people go to, but we may not have their full list in our list.
Other comments? Pat Daniels, are you?
No, I was just agreeing with John, because I think
John,
church
yeah.
make it complete. Yes, because I was thinking the same thing. That was the one thing that I think faith-based organizations were left out.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your time. And again, we will be emailing you all when we do have opportunities arise, knowing that you all have connections that we don't as well. And so I really look forward to working with y'all in the future on this, and hopefully see some of you at our public briefing that's happening on December 7th.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both.
One last thing, you guys, I just thought about, are we doing anything with youth? Because,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. So we have three community-based organizations that work really closely with youth. And so we are going to be looking to them to help us reach out to youth. We do have a few community-based organizations that work with youth as well that weren't recipients of our miniature grants, but we will still be getting information to them to give to their members. And so there's going to be a lot of working with the youth, as well as presentations at high schools and other such places.
Because I was thinking high schools is going to be your next group of people being employed, and they're very concerned about the environment. I think that would be awesome. Yeah, thanks.
And one of the other things that we're also doing with youth, in the past, we have done a youth press conference where we get high school newspaper, collegiate newspaper, and have a press conference dedicated to youth and their questions. So we will be repeating that sometime this winter.
All right. Talka.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to pass now to John Bell to talk about equity KPIs.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hunt, and good afternoon or evening, EAG. If you could go to the next slide, please. I'm going to just give a quick overview of what for many of you who've been with us for a while will not be new content, which are key performance indicators. And if you recall our equity framework, there's an element in the framework that talks about what we measure. And there's an old sort of saying as to what you measure is what you get. And that's the purpose of the key performance indicators, is for us to really measure what our sort of future state of realizing our equity framework and equity objectives really is. So again, the KPI is really to track progress towards our equity objectives. It's really to support the program accountability. What are we getting for this significant public investment through the lens of equity in particular? And it's for us to help determine where the program can make a difference in advancing equity and where there are gaps. One way to also think about the key performance indicators is this will be something that the program can dashboard out to the public, for example. So envision kind of a tracking mechanism whereby the KPIs that you all have developed and the program will consider and determine which ones to adopt. We will then, as we go throughout the process, figure out ways to really track our progress towards those KPIs. Next slide, please. Again, you'll recall that we've been undergoing a discussion relative to KPIs for about a year now. So what you received in your email and what we're discussing today is a culmination of a lot of work. And I just want to thank those of you who have really rolled up your sleeves with us over the past year. I know we had at one point a subcommittee work on this, but we started off about a year ago with an overarching kind of brainstorming of what might be some sort of performance measures we'd want to include. We then took a look at other key performance indicators of other projects. Rose Quarter was one of the projects that we took a look at, as well as I think 205. Then the team began to synthesize the work of the EAG and categorize the performance indicators underneath each of our, again, 6 equity objectives. You'll recall that the 6 equity objectives is mobility and accessibility, community benefits, workforce equity and economic opportunity, decision-making process, avoid further harm, and physical design. So we were able to sort of categorize each of those recommendations under each of your equity objectives. Then we had another discussion with the EAG, where we again had an opportunity to go in small groups, refine the recommended KPIs. Then that information was shot back to the program to determine which of these KPIs are there actually existing data, because again, so much of this depends on available data. Is it feasible? In other words, let us not agree to something that ultimately we would not be able to track. And so we went through that sort of screening process. Is it feasible? And then how might we apply it? Where might the application be? Would it be in construction? Would it be planning and design? Will we track these post-construction? Some of the measures that you all are recommending are more longer term that will outlive perhaps the life of the program. So that brings us to the step today, which is to have final input in what we hope will now be sort of the final recommendation of this body, of EAG, to the program. And once the program receives the recommended KPIs, the program will then assess which of these could either move forward or not, and then report back to the EAG in terms of what the final decision is on that. So next slide, please. So it's really a simple question that we're hoping to kind of land the plane here is, do you support recommending the KPIs as drafted to the IBR program administrator? And so Dr. Hunt, maybe I'll stop there and we can receive any comments, feedbacks, as well as hopefully concurrence. And Greg, I don't know if you want to weigh in a little bit in terms of what happens after you receive the recommendation and sort of what happens next step from that perspective.
So with KPIs, putting them into the system and having someone responsible for monitoring, measuring, and reporting out is key. So as this body approves the KPIs and recommends them to our team, we will start a process to where we integrate those KPIs into what our team measures. So that will be our next step, and we will create dashboards, as Donnell has spoken about, to convey how we are doing on those KPIs.
And real quick, oh, thank you, Greg. And real quick, maybe before we open up a conversation, I do want to kind of give an example, real live example. So this is the 205 improvement project. And so here are some examples of key performance indicators that they adopted and are tracking progress towards. And so you'll see, you know, contract dollars, which is a similar one that you all are recommending, dollars going to DBEs, apprentice non-operating engineers, workforce hours. So as you can imagine, this would be kind of a similar process that we would undergo once we have KPIs that we would dashboard out in a very similar process. Dr. Hunt.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
We're also happy with thumbs up too, if you're good with the stated process as well.
Hello.
Okay, seeing some thumbs up. Awesome. Looks like unanimous thumbs up here. And Dr. Hunt, maybe just to take a moment, you know, there are a number of big products that have come out of the EAG. One of which is have become a national model, which is the equity framework that this group deliberated on for quite some time. Greg and I and others have presented on this nationally. The other was the definition, which is the bedrock of the work of the equity framework. And now a big piece of work will be these key performance indicators. And what's so critical about the KPIs is, once again, the program sort of assesses and make a final determination that will come back to EAG. It gives a framework for our community benefits advisory group work in terms of things that perhaps ought to be community benefits, to tie it back to one of the KPIs. It also, again, I think communicates to the public and to the community through an equity lens, the items that the program will commit to tracking. Because again, what you measure is what you get. And this is going to be an important part of the accountability measure. So I just want to thank the EAG for all of your hard work and rolling up your sleeves with the program on this.
I agree. I think the KPIs that were developed read through them just yesterday to make sure I was familiar with all of them. I think you guys have came up with a great list of measurable things that will be meaningful to the communities. So thank you for your hard work.
All right. So I think if there are no more comments related to that, then we'll go to public comment. So we're moving quickly. Do we have any people lined up for public comment?
None at this time.
Not at this time. All right. Well, I will read the comment instructions. So through Zoom, please use the link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or on the IBR EAG meeting webpage. Commentators will be allowed to turn on their webcams, but will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. By phone, dial 253-215-8782, meeting ID 986-0940-5983, passcode 701376. Dial *9 to raise your hand. Dial *6 to unmute yourself. The facilitator...
I gave it back.
Thanks, Love Dove. The facilitator will call on participants to provide comment. Please provide your name and affiliation. Commentators will be given 2 minutes to speak. Next slide. So comment instructions to submit a comment after the meeting. Fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with EAG Public Comment in the subject line. Call 888-503-6735 and state EAG Public Comment in your message. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. All right, so we don't have any people to give public comment right now. So we will wrap up. So we'll end early today. So we will wrap up. We'll do our takeaways, our meeting evaluation. We do have our next meeting December 18th at 5:30 to 7:30. And so if we could have our poll for tonight. And if we could take the slide down and have 3 takeaways from today. All right, John Gardner.
Sorry. You know, a lot of us work in agencies and we do a lot of staff work. And I want to say that this is incredibly impressive group, incredibly impressive staff work over the last, I don't even know, year and a half. It feels like a long time. But John L., for you to call the question and there's no comment, there's no feedback, it's not because people aren't invested. It's because it's so well done. And whether it's you or Jake or Greg or Roberta, it's just been amazing staff work. And I think it really has set the bar. So just so glad to be part of this conversation and just very appreciative of all that has gone in to all the work so far. So, and it is a national model you guys have been building. And I mean, a lot of people are talking outside of the region. And I think sometimes we take for granted all the wealth of expertise that is at tonight's table, but folks are seeing us and hearing us, and it's exciting to be part of that. So just appreciate being part of this team.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate that. And for all of your support and leadership as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, one just big takeaway are all the hearts and claps, and that's just really, it's a big deal. So on that note, I think we should close. So we look forward to seeing you in December. Please stay safe and well. Enjoy your break. And we will see you soon.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Everybody.
Thanksgiving.
Right. Safe travels.
Good evening, everybody.
Yes, be well, everyone.